Hello there, I'm Brit and I'm broadcasting out the east of England. Welcome to my channel. This is a relationship series that I tend to do on a Wednesday, and it premieres about 8 o'clock each Wednesday. So as long as I've got a topic and as long as people suggest a topic, I run with it. So today I wanted to talk about how do you heal a broken heart? And it might seem like a straightforward topic, but it comes with a lot of underlying symptoms. And the reason why I decided to do this video is because there are so many people walking around with broken hearts and they don't know it. They think they have resolved their issues. They think they've got over the person. And they just feel as though they're behaving normally. It's only the outsider can see a little bit more than the person themselves, especially if they're not self-aware and self-reflective. And what happens is, if you haven't healed your broken heart, and it doesn't have to be romantic, anyone could have hurt you, but if you haven't forgiven them and you haven't gotten over it, and sometimes pain hasn't got it hasn't got a time scale. It's like grief. You can't say how long it's going to take you to get over something. But what happens is, a lot of the times it's written on your face, it comes out in your behavior. If you're short-tempered, if you're irritable, if you lack tolerance, all those kind of things kind of say, yeah, I'm still in pain. So I'm going to try to tell you how to overcome the pain, how to heal the pain, because as long as you are in pain, you're going to attract the wrong people in your life. And that is what you don't want, because when you attract the wrong person into your life, it reinforces the pain, it reinforces the negative narrative, and you'll be forever perpetuating the same feelings and emotions, and the wall will get higher and higher as the people who you attract, because energy begets energy, is going to kind of reinforce in your mind that all men are dogs, or whatever it is you say about them. So this is basically for women. I guess men can kind of gather what they can from it as well. So, but I'm just kind of talking for women at the moment. So an unhealed heart is an invitation to a disappointing or deteriorating relationship. And the thing is that as women, we are naturally emotionally giving. If we like someone, we go all in, and we can tell that person how we feel, and we just literally give it what we've got. It's just in our nature. Men are more reserved. So if a man is more reserved and a bit more skeptical, he is not going to go all in. So it does seem as though the woman is giving, and then because she's not sure about where the man's head is at, she can kind of feel, oh, maybe I am putting my heart where it doesn't belong. And if she's already got a problem, or she's already in pain, or she's just had a bereavement, or she's just lost her job. Multitude of things can happen when people meet each other. With a man, he might have just come out of a relationship, a really difficult relationship. He might not be ready for this woman who's coming on full on. And because that message isn't relayed, because she kind of has told him how she feels, he feels as though it's not the right time, it's not good timing, I need to take my time. She'll see that as rejection, and then that reinforces the pain that she might have had or might have been getting over in the past. So when we're talking about, I'm not talking about healthy gestures of admiration, like if you see somebody and you think, oh, I really like that person, and you tell that person, and you've got a healthy kind of interaction going on. I'm talking about people who are hurting and who are not happy, and who've met somebody and they feel that that person is the one, even though they're still hurting, and they're giving themselves to that person, and that person is not reciprocating. That's what I'm talking about. So we're talking about people who are in pain, not people who are healthy and direct and assertive. We're not talking about those. So when you are unhealed and you haven't resolved your issues, whether it's pining over your ex, you've experienced trauma, you have childhood wounds, all of these play out in your attitude and your behavior. So a lot of people, they end with their exes, and yet their exes still play on their mind, or their exes are still calling and they're still in that state of confusion, and they're not quite sure how to move on. On the one hand, they put their ex to bed and said, look, it's over. On the other hand, the ex is still calling and interfering with their peace, and they're not quite sure where they are, and yet they want to get on with their life. But you've got this person in the background who is just like a stumbling block, who's just kind of blocking that person emotionally from moving on. So that needs to be resolved. People always say, well, ex can be friends. And I'm not quite sure if they can, because I kind of think, why do you want to be a friend with your ex? But some people are okay with it and some people are not. I guess it's a personal choice. But if it's interfering with your peace of mind, you have to ask yourself, should I still be interacting with my ex? What kind of relationship? Is it healthy? Is it like a call once in a blue moon just to check up how you're doing? Or is it a constant, invasion of your space? So when you enter a relationship unhealed, you tend to lack tolerance. You accept someone who you don't really want. You are skeptical, cynical, and mistrustful. You end up talking to friends and relatives about the person because you're not sure about that person yourself. Your antenna is off, so you need validation from other people. You expect others to accept your unhealthy behavior and attitude. Some people, when they're not healing, they feel as though, oh, I have a right to speak to somebody how I like. And if you don't like it, you know what you could do. You don't have to tolerate it. Some people are like that. They have the most obnoxious behavior, and they've got the audacity to say, well, if you can't take me at my worst, don't expect to take me at my best. You should be able to put up with all sides of me. No. When that side of you is destructive and unhealed, nobody needs to put up with that. So, need to step down a bit, because it's not acceptable. And some people, they're so loud. Oh, it's just the way I am. It was like me and my Married at First Sight. I think her name's Dominica. Yeah. She was accused of being really loud and abrasive and aggressive. And she was saying in her defense, that is who I am. That's how I've always been. That's how I was raised. It might be who you are. It might be how you was raised, but you have to know where it's appropriate. If you can raise your voice and behave obnoxiously in front of your parents and your families and friends, that's fine. But healthy people are not going to tolerate it. So don't think that just because your family and friends accept you as you are, with your obnoxious self and your loud and aggressive self, it's okay for everyone. It's not. It's okay for a certain group of people who probably accept you regardless. But not everyone is going to accept you unconditionally with your bad behavior or your unhealthy behavior. So it's unfair to expect a partner to accept your unhealthy flaws. Instead, you need to take responsibility for your growth and look at ways to address that behavior. That's the best thing. Making excuses for bad behavior. You know, that same lady, Dominic, she was saying, oh, well, you know, when I was young, I was told I was loud. I didn't have a voice. I wasn't allowed to say anything. So now I just speak out. You're an adult now. You're not a child. So those excuses from the past are just not acceptable. So anyway, disrespectful arguing. This is all a part of the unhealed person. They will get involved in disrespectful arguing. When they feel attacked, they tend to want to defend themselves. They're not actually listening to what the person is saying, but they can construe or misconstrue what the person is saying as an attack, and they lash out, even if they're wrong, and you have something that's correct. Because of the way it's come over, and because of the way it's been perceived, they lash out, all claws, scratching. So, if you want to be heard, you need to be mindful of how you communicate. There are a lot of ways that, you know, if in a healthy relationship and where you're healed, you'll be able to take your time, reflect before you say something, and speak in a measured way. But if you're unhealed and you're still hurting, it's going to come out in the way you communicate. Your impatience, your passive aggressiveness is all going to come to the fore. Also, when you're unhealed, you leave the door open for narcissists, because narcissists look for unhealed and vulnerable people. So if you're feeling lonely, if you feel that time is running out, you're in your 40s, you're in your 50s, and you think, oh, I'm not going to meet anybody, you know, you're making yourself, the victim of a narcissist. If you're unhealed, if you have low self-worth, if you're broken, if you're damaged, if you're afraid to start over, all of these are the narcissist playground. They just love people who are in that position and who will welcome them and their love bombing. Love bombing is where, you know, they come all in and they give you all of the adoration and compliments, and it's only one-sided. You don't even have to say anything. It's all about them telling you how wonderful you are, what they're going to do, and blah, blah, blah. And so if you're in that place where you're unhealed and you are lonely and desperate and dissatisfied with life, you know, you could invite a narcissist into your life. And like I said, when that happens, it reinforces the negative narrative that you keep telling yourself. If you learn to heal, it will help you improve the quality of your choices. You'll have better communication. You'll be able to have healthier relationships, not only with yourself, but with other people too. So how long does it take to heal? Well, as we know, they say time heals the pain, but sometimes it doesn't. People are in pain for years and years and years. It's really about addressing it on from a place of self-awareness, from a place of just talking it through. You might need therapy, but you're definitely going to need to work on it. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to go off somewhere and I'm going to take time out from work. I'm going to take a sabbatical for a year, or I'm going to go on vacation. If you do all of those things and you're not actually working on the pain and the grief and the loss, when you come out of that year, you're still going to feel that pain, that grief and loss. So you need to be actively working on yourself and how you're responding and how you're reacting. And there's plenty of, if you can't afford a therapist, there are plenty of videos online that can give you free advice and help you through grief, whether it's loss of a physical person, whether it's loss during of a relationship, whether it's abandonment, whatever the reason is, there is someone out there to offer free advice. So I was listening to Stefan Speaks the other day, and what he was talking about healing is a bit like the gestalt therapy. Gestalt therapy is where somebody has hurt you and then they've died, and you can't get to tell that person how you feel, and you're carrying it with you and you need to get it out. And what you do is you sit on a chair, you have an imaginary person, or you could put a teddy bear on the chair or whatever facing you, and you talk to that person as though they are alive, and you tell them every single thing, that how you feel, how their behavior has impacted you, and how you're hurting and all that kind of stuff. And you just say in whichever way. If the way you want to communicate is through cursing, you do it that way. But it's about getting it out. Now, what Stefan Speaks says is that you should actually write down the names of people you have who have hurt you. Write down everybody that comes to mind. He says it doesn't matter how long ago it was. It doesn't matter how trivial it was. As long as they come to mind, it means it's still inside unresolved. So what you're meant to do is write down the name of the person. Could be one person, it could be 30 people. But you write down each name, and I would suggest that you put it in, like, if you've got a typewriter and you know how to do tables, I would suggest that you put the names on one side of the table and you put how they hurt you on the other side. If you don't, you could just have a notebook, write it down, put some lines and separate each name of person who hurt you, and against the first name you put next to it how they hurt you. And when you're talking about how they hurt you, you can say in whichever form you want. It will be uncensored. Okay, so, and if you don't feel like writing all of that, you know your phones have a voice recorder. You can do it that way. It's just as effective. It's about getting it out, and it might even be more effective for some people. So yes, so you write down the name, you write down how they hurt you, and you don't censor it. It can be as insulting and damning as you like. That's step one. Step two, you read out that letter as though you're telling it to the person. So you're not mailing this letter. You are reading it out as though that person is in the room, and you are telling them exactly how you feel, what made you feel that way, and you're saying it indiscriminately without censoring it. Step three, you go back to that letter and you take out all the damning words, all the patronizing, condescending, attacking words. You take them all out and you replace them with factual words that are much more, which are, let's say, acceptable then, or more positive. So it's not to negate them, because you've already got out the anger, you've already spoken out the venom. So now you want to kind of find a sense of peace. So now you replace those nasty words, or what horrible words are in there, and you replace them with something else that's not so bad. And what is supposed to happen by doing that is you're supposed to reach a place where you come to terms with what has happened. Apparently that process is supposed to help you come to terms with what has happened and allow you to forgive. Now, what I was thinking, well, or what I would like to add, this is not Stefan Speaks, this is me. I would like to, for you to write a letter as though you are the person that hurt you. And what that person is saying in their defense, their reason for hurting you. Now, that might be difficult because you won't know what their reason was. And you could say, oh, they were just thoughtless, they were senseless, they were abusive, whatever it is. But try to forget about the judgmental or critical side and just write to them as though they are writing to you about the incident from their perspective. And another one that's coming from me that I would like you to try. I mean, this is going to take a lot of time. You don't have to put a time frame on it. I think you should put a time frame on it. You don't want it to stretch out for months and months and months. But you can say maybe a month you'd like to get it all done. So it's a dedicated project. What I would like you to do is actually write a letter to yourself. First, in the most damning way possible about what you think about you, how you have hurt you, your role in hurting you. Or as I would say, my role in hurting me. What did I do stupidly or thoughtlessly? And I can slag myself off as much as I like. And that's the first process, because those are all the subconscious accusations and self-recriminations that you are telling yourself. After you've done that, you do the same thing. You vet it and you use kinder words to replace those words, those horrible, patronizing, attacking words. And then you write the third letter as though, from your own perspective, why you behaved in that way. I've got a funny feeling that would give you complete healing. I think Stefan Speaks his way will give you a measure of healing, but I don't think it will be holistic because it leaves a certain element of it unattended. So I really believe that if you do the whole 360, I think it will be much more beneficial. It could well be emotional, very, very difficult. If it's difficult, you stop, you do something else, you come back to it. And just take it, you don't have to rush it. Just make sure that whoever comes to mind, you put down their names. You might just want to put down their names and you might not feel like tackling it after you put down their names. But as long as you try to, it's a project that you want to complete and you're determined to complete in order that you are well enough and healthy enough to enter into relationships. You don't want to enter a relationship and then, you're miserable and, why you done that? And, and the men are so confused because if I'm talking as a woman and, a man, you're okay with a man 1 minute and the next minute, you're grumpy or they've done a minor thing, a petty thing, and you're jumping down their throat and you're being overly critical. Every little thing they do, you are analysing it and picking it up. You're like, what's wrong with her? 1 minute she's so nice and the next minute she just gone like shit, something wrong with her. Men won't understand that you're in pain. Even men who are in pain don't understand. They don't even understand their behaviour. They don't know how it comes over. A man in pain's behaviour, a man who is in pain, their behaviour comes over as hesitant. The woman picks it up. They keep holding back. They go to say something, they take it back. And it makes that woman feel as though she can't be trusted. And it makes that woman feel uncomfortable. And when a man is constantly doing that, saying things that are kind of passive aggressive and not realizing how that woman is going to feel and talking to that woman openly 1 minute and then holding back the next, you know that that person still has unresolved issues. So it affects male and female, and it affects them in different ways because women are more open, so it's more obvious. But men, it can be a bit more destructive because it's more subtle, and they're less likely to admit that they're not ready for a relationship, or they're not sure about how they feel about you, especially if the woman is coming on strong. So it is important to address your relationships, your past relationships. Make sure they've been put to bed. Sometimes it's difficult because you have some people, some exes, who are persistent. And you tell them, look, or you make it clear, look, I'm seeing someone, and they still keep showing up. And the same like women. Yes, people say you can block them, but, if they know where you are, they can turn up where you are, and, it can be quite difficult, and it can kind of contribute to you not investing fully into the new relationship. So it is about settling those relationships, make sure they've been put to bed, and yeah. So what they call step 2 is the emotional detox. As we detox, all the nasty bits come out first, and then your body gets cleansed. So it's a similar process. So also, and don't skip any stages. With that letter writing, make sure you follow all the stages. Hopefully, you've only got 2 or 3 people that have hurt you. If you've got more than 3 or 4, it's probably going to take you quite a long time, but make sure you're in the right mindset and you don't skip any of the stages. If you're unhealed, you may feel as though you've met the right person, and that's another thing, with unhealed people or those who are unsecurely attached. They can feel as though they've met the right person, and that person is wonderful in small doses. But how long can you spend with that person? Supposing you have to drive from here to Scotland, maybe a 2.5-hour drive, and you're not allowed to have the radio on. How will you two communicate? Do you think you'd be able to have a laugh and a nice chat? A lot of people, they're in relationships, and because of the distractions, whether it's TV, whether it's games, whether it's social media, they're fine with their partners, but if they were in a room by themselves, just the 2 of them, no TV, no social media, nothing to distract you, how would you still find that person desirable, want to laugh and joke with them? I mean, that's what COVID did it opened a lot of people's eyes. It made people realize that they didn't like their spouses or their partners. All of a sudden, they were put in a position where they had to face their choices. And they realized that those choices were fine as long as they could go out and do whatever they wanted to do, whether it was work long hours or go to the pub or go to the movies or go out with the lads. That was okay because they had that reprieve. But when people were on a strict lockdown and people could not go out and they were stuck in the house with their choice, they didn't like it. All of a sudden, they realised how incompatible they were. And can you imagine that's what it takes to find out that you are incompatible? A lot of people know that they're tolerating their spouses. They know. They know they're not really getting on. But they kind of dismiss it and push it under the carpet because they can do something else. But supposing you can't do something else. So you have to make sure, and to know whether or not you've got a really good connection. And this is what, what's his name? Tony Lewis something or other. I think his name's Lewis Hicks. He was saying that, you would need to know that you can spend time with a person with nothing. You know, you're happy in the silence. You don't need to fill the gaps. Whether you're spooning, hugging, having a chat, looking at the stars, whatever it is, you can do it without that restlessness. But if you have that restlessness and you feel as though you cannot spend that time because you feel kind of uneasy and awkward, that person isn't your person. So, can you handle your partner's worst moments? Don't settle down until you've seen your partner angry. I'm not quite sure why I put that, but I guess if a person is unhealed, they are more likely to be angrier than a person who might communicate in a more healthier way. And so can you imagine if you've got this wonderful person and you think this person is absolutely perfect, and then you do something to upset her, and that person just switches. F's and blind, you effing this go suck your mother, blah, blah, blah. Whatever they say. Can you imagine? And you wouldn't have known because everything had been going perfect up until that point. You'd never seen them angry. You know, you hadn't provoked them in any way. And the same with a man. You know, you can be with a man and he can be the best things in sliced bread. And then you tick him off for some reason and he flips and you're like, bloody hell. My goodness, how can you switch like that? It's almost like people are two different people. And it's because people are containing themselves. They're containing their real self. A lot of people enter relationships and they're not authentic. And when they're not healed, it makes it worse because they're trying to put their best self out there. And their best self isn't who they are. So they're suppressing and suppressing all of these negative emotions. And then all it takes is one little thing. It's like it just explodes. So yeah, stay long enough with somebody before you get involved to see what they're like when they're angry and see whether or not you can handle it. And going back to people who don't have a connection, I love to people watch, as you know, and I remember being in a pub and it was a man and a woman. They were married. Well, I kind of guess they're married because he says it's his missus, so I'm assuming. But regardless, the two of them never said a word. The two of them sitting there drinking. The man was drinking the beer. I think the woman was drinking a beer as well. And they were just sitting there. And I thought, how sad is that? How can you just be with your spouse and not talk? And because I was there for a couple of hours, I guess they started having a bit more to drink. And as they drank more, then they could engage. But it was so crass. The conversation was effing and blinding, and it was, I don't even know what they were saying. But it's almost like they need a drink in order to tolerate the other person. That's my worst nightmare. Being with somebody I fall out of love with, or being with somebody who I cannot chat and have a laugh with and be myself with. My worst nightmare. I think it's important from the very beginning you are yourself. So if you are not healed, it will show in your authenticity because, you know, you can talk about your fears. You can talk about your pain if that person is willing to listen. If that person isn't willing to listen, maybe it's not the right person. Or maybe you don't need to talk to him about it. You can talk to somebody else about it. But you just need to know that you're doing something. You're working on yourself in order to bring out the best of yourself in the relationship. Hurt people hurt people. So hurt people, they can't help but hurt people because they're putting up walls. They are protecting themselves. A lot of them have to be selfish, so they're only thinking about themselves, and they're thinking about, I don't want to be hurt anymore. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to give myself anymore. I did it before and it hurt. I'm not going to do it again. And so they go into relationships half-heartedly, and they're afraid to give of themselves, and the other person feels it. The other person feels rejected, betrayed, and all sorts, and it's just not a healthy relationship. If you're unable to give of yourself, don't enter into a relationship until you're healed. It's unfair to yourself and it's unfair to the other person. And it's worse. Sometimes, it's that person might think, oh, well, I'm not cheating, I'm not abusing, or I'm not hitting or anything. But it's just as painful when you're not giving of yourself in a relationship, when you're holding back. You need to let go. Yes, it's frightening. It's really scary. But when you let go and you realize that person is able to handle you and hold you, male and female, it's the most safest place to be. And yes, you can say, oh, if I let go now, what happens in the future? A lot of people, they go into relationships thinking way, way ahead. Oh, suppose I tell them this, suppose I tell them that, and they throw it in my face. That's not the way to go into a relationship. If you're thinking like that, you can't go into a relationship. You have to go in a relationship with trust and faith that it's going to work. Not that someone's going to throw what you tell them in their face. Otherwise, you're always going to hold back. So you're hurting yourself by denying yourself of the opportunity to love. So, yeah, and I think that's it. So heal first and then enter a relationship. And hopefully everything will be hunky-dory. That's all for now. Bye-bye.